The following program does not offer personal medical advice. Please consult your doctor before using any treatment or product we cover. Welcome to Go to Health Radio with your host, Jonathan Marks. We provide a welcoming environment where experts educate you on important health topics, answer your questions, and provide information from which you can benefit in consultation with your doctor. And now, here is Jonathan Marks.
Welcome back, everybody, to Go to Health. Today we are with Silke Matura, PhD. She's a senior clinical scientist at Johann Wolfgang Goethe University Hospital in the Clinic for Psychiatry, Psychosomatics, and Psychotherapy at the University at Frankfurt am Main, Frankfurt, Germany. Welcome. How are you today, Silke?
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. It's good to have you. So tell us a little bit about your background before we get into the detail of the kind of research you're working on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a psychologist by training. I'm also a counselor. And for the past decade, I have mainly done research in the effects of lifestyle on brain health, also on mental health. I have been working also with patients, with psychiatric patients, but right now I'm almost just doing research.
Great, good. And so tell us a little bit more about the research that you're doing with the project New Brain Nutrition.
Yes, within New Brain Nutrition, we are looking on the effect of lifestyle factors like diet and also physical activity on physical and also mental well-being. So what we want to know specifically, we want to see in how far diet can change impulsivity. We want to see how stress is related to certain dietary behaviors. And we want to see in how far diet can also have an effect on cognition. So this is what we do within the project.
Great. And how are you collecting this data? What are your methods?
For diet, we have invented a special app. It's called the Appetite mobile app. And with this app, we can capture dietary behavior in everyday life. So whenever our participants, when they eat something or when they drink something, they are asked to insert this into the app. So we have a very specific record on the dietary intake. With regards to physical activity, we use so-called accelerometers. Some of you might know them. It's just like a watch, like a sensor, and it captures the physical activity.
Got it. So, and how many patients are you doing this study with? How big is the study?
So we're planning on including 300 patients altogether. Right now, we were able to include 200. We had some delay due to COVID-19.
Sure.
We couldn't see participants for quite some while here at the hospital, but we're actually doing fine. And I think we will reach a number of, let's say, 250 participants in the end.
Great. And when do you expect the research to end? When do you expect to publish findings?
We actually have already published a paper on our app, so we're doing well here. With regards to the findings, we're planning on doing our analysis at the end of this year and the beginning of next year, since we really want to have all the data present once we start analysis.
Right.
And then we would like to publish, I think, until hopefully in May or June next year, we'll have the first manuscripts ready.
Of 2022.
Of 2022.
Got
yes.
it. Great. So what are you seeing so far? What have you learned so far?
What we have learned with this project is that it's quite hard to capture dietary behavior. Our participants, they're doing very, very fine. We haven't seen great effects on impulsivity so far. We have seen that there is a relationship between stress and the way we eat. But for impulsivity, we haven't found very big effects yet, but we're still collecting data. So this this might change.
So tell me more about the data you have seen on stress and how it affects eating, or which comes first? Is it the eating and then the stress, or the stress and then the eating?
It's more the stress and then the eating.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to distinguish between persons who eat when they're stressed and persons who don't eat when they're stressed. But
Mhm.
so far, since we're still collecting the data, I can't really say anything about our final results.
Yes. Yeah. And before we were talking about the influence that exercise has on the brain. Can you tell us a little bit about research you've done on that and what you've learned?
So we have done quite some research on the effects of physical exercise on the brain. And we had a group of participants of 60 cognitively healthy participants, and they trained, or they did exercise for 3 times a week over the course of 3 months. We put them on a stationary bike, and there were trainers with them who really had a close look if they really did the training right.
Mm-hmm.
And what we could see is that it actually had an effect on brain metabolism. So that means that the brain became a little bit more stable, less susceptible towards degenerative processes with this. So we could show that there are positive effects of exercise on the brain. And this has been done also by some other researchers. They haven't specifically looked at brain metabolism, but what has been shown is that regular exercise, it has very great effects on cognition. So what you can see is if people regularly exercise, they are less prone to neurodegeneration, they stay cognitively healthy longer, and they are happier. Actually, it's
Really?
it's not only cognition, it's also has a great effect on the mood.
Oh, really? Now, is this true? What age groups is this true for?
This is actually true for everybody.
Oh,
So,
really? So we have no excuse not to exercise.
no, you can always start exercising. And what has been shown is that when you start in midlife, let's say you start with the age of 40, this will have a great effect for later on. Like if you start now, it will slow down degenerative processes for when you're much older, like 64, 5, 70, it will have an effect on that. So it's never too late, and it always has a very good effect. And I think what's important to say is when I say regularly exercise, I mean, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get on a treadmill or on a stationary bike every day. We say that if you do exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes, that's already sufficient. And you don't have to go running, or you don't really have to exhaust yourself. Light exercises are enough. It's enough if you just go on a walk with a friend, or if you bike somewhere. Here in Germany, we have, like, you can go biking everywhere.
Yes.
Swimming is very, very good. But also if you have a garden, and if you work in the garden, this is also considered exercise.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. That should really be very encouraging to everybody sitting out there leading too sedentary of a life, is to start getting out there and exercise. Now, when you say it has a beneficial effect on the brain and cognition, can you describe a little bit more in detail what it is you see or what happens in the brain when you exercise?
Yeah. So what happens when you exercise is that first of all, your brain gets more oxygen. So that's the most important effect, that once you go and you exercise, there's more blood coming to your brain, and this gives your brain more oxygen, and that has a very positive effect for that time.
Okay.
The more long-term effects are with regard to brain plasticity, and plasticity means that your brain is able to change. So the brain you have now doesn't have to stay the same. It can grow. And we have one region in the brain, it's called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is very important for our memory, for recalling events, for example. And in this region, your brain can still grow. And it happens when you express brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So this is something, when you do exercise, this has a positive effect on your brain-derived neurotrophic factor levels. And this in turn contributes to plasticity. So what you can see is that people who do a lot of exercise, that this can lead to brain growth in the hippocampus. And this enhances cognition.
Great. And what is neurotropic? What is that term you use? Can you explain that?
The brain-derived neurotrophic factor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's I would have to go very, very deep into molecular science, but it's we have in our brain, we have certain substances, and these make our synapses, our cells grow. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, is one of them. There's also NGF, nerve growth factor, and these are very important for plasticity for the brain.
Got it. So when you exercise, you are actually increasing the presence of this factor. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
How did you get into this kind of work? What interested you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. For me, I was always very interested in how we can improve memory with non-pharmacological interventions, because then I started with autobiographical. That was my first real research I did, and then I started to go into the neurodegenerative disorders, do my research there. So I focused on Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's dementia, and until now there is no real cure for that. So once you suffer from Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's dementia, there is not really a way back or a way out, and you can't really treat this very well with the medications we have now. So I started thinking, okay, there might be alternative ways to slow down neurodegeneration, other than pharmacological interventions. And this is how I got to the lifestyle factors, going deeper into what can we do, what can each of us do to promote brain health. And it shows that physical exercise is the strongest intervention you can do. It has the strongest effect, the biggest effects. Diet as well. Both of them are very potent in helping the brain to stay healthy.
Yeah. Now we've talked about exercise. We have just a couple more minutes. What can you say, or what have we learned yet about diet? Are you studying that part at all?
Yeah. So I talked about exercise with diet. There has been growing evidence that the Mediterranean diet, it has very positive effects, which means that it's vegetable based. There's a lot of fish in the diet. And as long as we try to avoid saturated fatty acids, let's say our French fries or the big burger, we try to eat less of that. That's always beneficial, also for the brain. And I think the strongest effects have been shown for the omega-3 fatty acids. These are unsaturated acids, and they are fatty acids. They are present in fish, in cold water fish, and these actually also help the plasticity again.
Great. Yeah, good. Now you mentioned before about Alzheimer's. Do we have any evidence that exercise and good nutrition can stave off or prevent Alzheimer's? Do we know that?
Yes, there has been some research showing that physical exercise, it can prevent the onset, or it can delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease.
Got it. So Alzheimer's, do we know, is it mostly genetic? Or we really don't know?
There is a genetic component to it, yeah. But it's also, it has to do with the lifestyle as well. But yeah, there has been some research showing that Alzheimer's, it can't prevent it 100%.
Right.
But the chances that you develop Alzheimer's are smaller if you stay on a healthy diet and you do your physical exercise regularly. And also the onset is delayed, yeah.
Great. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the segment. I want you to repeat for me, for those people who forget, what do we have to do in terms of exercise? How much exercise? What kind of exercise? Say it one more time.
Okay, so just to wrap it up.
Yes.
So the World Health Organization, they recommend 150 minutes of light to moderate exercise a week.
Okay.
Okay. And this can mean that you go for a walk, you go on your bike, or you go swimming, or you do your garden work. That's what the World Health Organization, what they say. But we have seen that also just 90 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, 30 minutes each, also has a very positive effect. So you don't have to start with 150 minutes because this might be too big of a goal. It's enough to start with 90 minutes, as long as you get up and do the exercise. Yeah.
Good. Great. Thank you so much, Silke. So we've been talking with Dr. Silke Matura. She's a senior clinical scientist at Johann Wolfgang Goethe University Hospital in their clinic for psychiatry, psychosomatics, and psychotherapy in Frankfurt am Main, Germany. She's been working with our project New Brain Nutrition. It's also called Eat to Be Nice, but the website is newbrainnutrition.com, where you can learn so much more. I want to thank you, Silke, for joining us today to talk about how physical exercise can have such a great effect on mental health and general well-being. Thanks for being with us, Silke.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in this week to Go to Health Radio. Be sure to join Jonathan Marks and another health expert next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and 12 noon Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. You can also catch the program on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next show, be sure to visit us on the web at gotohealthmedia.com and elevate your life.